Hello and welcome to the Bluff Creek Project Podcast. I'm Tate Hieronymus and I am your host. And today we have another Roundtable episode, round 2, actually. So guys, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to whoever wants to go first.
All right, my name is Damon Irons. I'm from Boise, Idaho. I have been amazingly interested in Bigfoot since my first Class A sighting about 10 years ago. Last couple of years, I've really kind of amped up the number of things that I've been getting into, and the Bluff Creek Project last summer was absolutely amazing. And so here I am continuing on my Bigfoot journey.
Awesome.
All right, my name is Connor, and I'm from Bigfoot Anonymous. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, and now I live down in the swamps of Florida. I'm big on fishing and looking for Sasquatch. And really, it started with Bigfoot, but it's just spanned out to the Gill Man, the Moth Man, Mantis Man, and just so much more. And recently, the Dog Man.
Awesome. I am Jonathan Easley. I live in Southern California. I've spent a few years going out on expeditions here and there in the Sierras. I do a lot of backpacking, so outdoors kind of led me into the whole Bigfoot genre. I've been to Bluff Creek a couple times, and that's how I got to know Tate. And I have a YouTube channel called Western Bigfoot Exploration. I got a couple videos on there, and I'll be adding much more in the near future here.
Very cool. My turn. My name is Carl Crew, and Jerry Crew was my great uncle. And my father and my other uncle Jim logged the forest of Mount Shasta with Jerry. And Jerry was the first person to take a plaster cast of Bigfoot in 1958 on Mount Shasta. So it's part of my family. You know, I've been hearing stories all my life from different people in my family. And I finally wrote the screenplay for Jerry. Took two years, almost 2 years. And going through tons of articles, like stacks of yellowed articles collected by my Uncle Jim, and interviewing incredible people like Peter Burns, and Jim, and everyone else in the family that's still alive. Yeah. So yeah, and I just love everything. I have very specific beliefs about what Bigfoot is and what he is not. So, but I'm just so happy to be with you guys. So let me get amen.
Amen.
Let's go. Amen, man.
And this show is brought to you by Tinder.
That's why I wore my tank top today. So
you do realize this is an audio only podcast.
Oh, I combed my hair too, and I wore pants.
Yeah.
So
Did you wear cologne as well?
On, yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't wear cologne.
All that you gotta wash off that makeup, buddy. So I guess what I want to start off with tonight. Me personally, I don't believe in this, but do you guys think it's possible Bigfoot can do you think Bigfoot has bioluminescence? Because people talk about eye shine or eye glowing when they sometimes see Bigfoot. What do you guys think about that?
I just think they have huge retinas, and light equally goes in and out pretty easily, especially at night when they're open way up. And that red is just simply the retina on the back of their eye.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's a natural reflection or natural just glow, but nothing like laser beams or anything of the crazy stuff that was ever reported. But also eye-to-eye contact does have very special power. So if you ever do lock eyes, it might seem like it's glowing or locks you in, might set you into a trance.
Exactly.
There's the side of an animal's eyes. They have they're all structured differently, whether they're nocturnal or, go around the daytime. They're designed for different things. There's a tapetum lucidum, and that has almost everything to do with reflectivity. If you look like a crocodile's eyes, they have really good eyesight at nighttime, and you shine the light out there and you're going to see red. There are a few animals that kind of reflect. I've heard a lot of reports that they reflect yellow. Some say red. I have no idea what they reflect. I've never seen this myself. But anything's possible. And they're said to roam around mostly at night. And they would need great great night vision, correct? So
That's right.
that would coincide with that would coincide with any light that's reflected in their way would obviously harvest within that eye and reflect back.
Right.
So
Cutting to the chase.
It's weird because gorillas are the opposite, right? Gorillas have poor eyesight.
I think
right?
so.
But, depending on the adaptation, the environment that they're living in could adapt.
Cutting to the chase of your question. The chase of your question. There's nothing supernatural about their eyes when, shining and all that stuff. It's only what a normal animal would do in different lighting. There's nothing supernatural about it. That's one thing I believe about Bigfoot. It's not supernatural. It's not from an alien. People say, oh, it's all magical and blah, blah, blah. No. People say, well, I saw Bigfoot there and then it was 20 feet down there. How did it get there? How did that happen? Because they travel in packs. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When I talked to Jerry's, one of his sons, Hiram, he was, talking about Nephilim and, these could be, part of the Nephilim, blah, blah, blah. Jerry said himself, supernatural doesn't leave big old piles of poo.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. And they found fecal matter. And in fact, they hurt him and Peter Burns found fecal matter and had it sent to Berkeley for being tested. And it came back a while later, and it was discovered that they couldn't tell exactly what animal it was from, but it was a carnivore because there were bones, small bones in it, and also there was parasites from only found in human and apes, but that's all they could say. So I don't believe
Very
that.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't believe that Bigfoot is the missing link or anything like that. I believe they were human at one time, and they've adapted. That's one of the things we tackle in this screenplay. Because
the true ancient man, the true ancient.
Yeah, well, it's like, man, there's two types of evolution. There's fake and real. Okay, fake evolution is macroevolution, where there literally is no fossil evidence of evolution. All these people, oh well, what about Lucy? What about the Nebraska man? Well, Lucy was like a bone, like a tooth of a pig. Okay, and like they found every single macro evolutionary thing it's a bunch of nonsense. In fact, major evolution scientists, they refuse to let a divine foot through the door. So they don't care if there's no evidence. They're refusing to say that there's an intelligent designer. But
there's also a motive behind that. Yeah.
Oh, say
Sorry,
what?
Go ahead. Go ahead. You're right.
Yeah, I agree. But microevolution is the adaptation of species. Okay, so that's why dogs who live in the Antarctic have thicker coats. That's why they look a little different. Species adapt. They adapt. That's microevolution. And there's billions of pieces of evidence of that. So I believe, in the 1700s. This goes back hundreds of years. The sighting of Bigfoot, the wild man in the forest, all this stuff, and in the 1700s, there was an earthquake so big that the Mississippi River flowed backwards.
Yeah. Yep. I heard about that.
Child, that's an earthquake, baby. Yeah. And there were Indian villages and they freaked out. Everyone freaked out. There was no radio. There was no any kind of way to communicate with anybody. It was like, so you have these wild Indians going mad, running in the forest, living in the hills. Okay. And I believe, and this happened in Oregon too. There's a whole river that was cut off. Everything was crazy. And I believe that the Indians that went mad and went into the forest lived in the forest, and they, because of interbreeding and the lack of like a lot of women, who didn't make it into the forest, whatever, there was interbreeding, and there was stuff going on with. They eventually got really big. It sounds crazy, but it's adaptation. They're adapting to living in a forest hardcore. And that's why they're so sensitive to movement in the forest. They're, that's their environment. So that's why we're so dumb. We stumble through a forest. Oh, look at that. And they're like, yeah. So, I don't believe they're from spaceships or anything.
Yeah, I don't believe so either.
Yeah. Although Ray Wallace did. You know who Ray Wallace was?
Yes, sir.
Well, I actually read about Ray Wallace a couple places. One of them was Legend Meets Science, but I read it in a couple other places. I did not know how off the wall this guy was. I didn't know that I thought all he did was make some, wooden footprints and kind of claim this and that. This guy had insane claims. He said he had a video better than Roger Patterson. He said he went into like caves that they went into, and he said he had all kinds of claims. Like, it didn't stop there. He was.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you were saying you have something.
Well, I have 9 letters. We cover this in my screenplay. Uh-huh. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, this guy he was like, he couldn't really read or write. He was like a hillbilly basically. And when he died is when they claimed, oh, Bigfoot died, because that's when his family said that so they could make money off all the hundreds of casts that he had made that are totally fake. All it went across the nation, across the whole world. Oh, Bigfoot's dead, Bigfoot's dead. And the irony is that the actual casts that were made looked like geometric, obviously carved. I have pictures of one of the carved casts, and then my uncle's cast, totally, organic and totally different. Yeah. So yeah, he was full of stuff like, the UFOs and they took all the Bigfoots and they put him in a boat and sent him to China, and just all kinds of crazy stuff. UFOs and Bigfoots, that was his deal.
And the sad part about that situation is that he got a lot of publicity for this. He's partially responsible for Bigfoot getting this sort of joke of a name out, in the public, because
Actually, the name came from Jerry. People say that the guy from Humboldt Times came up with it. Jerry was showing people at the site, oh, look, Bigfoot was here last night. And then when he took the cast into the Humboldt Times, they sat on the story for a week. That's when they took the famous picture that went all over the world in 1958. And so actually the name did come from Jerry, but Ray Wallace was pissed off because his people were quitting. They were so scared. And so he wanted in some of this publicity. Yeah. So and he didn't carve the fake prints. There was another guy. Oh, what was his name? Now Al Hodgins. I forget his name, but he carved these prints and
wait. Was it not Ray Wallace? The other guy. We talked about him last week. Jonathan.
Al Hodgins.
You saw the prints, right?
No,
you saw the.
I saw the wooden prints myself in person, and
they have like a surfer curve. It's really hilarious. It's so funny.
I'm gonna see. I'm gonna see if I can try and find the picture. Because I know this is my dad's Zoom.
And Ray Wallace didn't just stop there at claiming the prints. Ray Wallace went around, talked to all kinds of newspapers, right? Oh, yeah. And he went as far as to say, "Well, I told Roger Patterson exactly where to look." I have film. Hilarious. He said, "I have film. I have them on film longer than Roger Patterson." He said,
Right. So he talked a lot about his film, sir.
Throughout all these interviews that he did with the paper. What's that?
Grant Mullins.
He even claimed
Grant Mullins, right? Is that right, Carl?
Yeah, that's right. Right. Yep. He even claimed that his wife was in the suit that they shot.
That's right. That's what it was. Yeah. That's
Now this is very interesting because it was Al Hodges was a cryptozoologist, or whatever, crypto guy from Washington, and he met Al at the Humboldt Times through the editor, and he came down to Jerry's place. And he showed him the cast, and he goes, "Oh, the guys are pranking you. This is not real," and everything. And he goes, "No, I've seen it myself. They're going down these cliffs. No one could go down there like that." And he said that, "Here, I'll draw you a map to where it was." He drew a map and gave it to him, and he took it and gave it to the guy at the Humboldt Times. That map eventually went to Gimlin, and that's how they found out where to go. Yeah, I have the map, and I also have a note from who's that other guy? Titmus. I love his name. Titmus.
Yeah, Bob Titmus.
Bob Titmus. Yeah. Now that's a hilarious story. That is a hilarious story, and God bless him, man. He was like taxidermy guy, and Jerry was coming to town, and he went into this taxidermy shop, and he was telling him like these things in the woods that got to get. He showed him he bought a kit how to do a plaster cast from him. And he went out and did that and everything. He came back and showed the cast. He goes, "Oh, well, I don't know." And what eventually happened was Peter Burns, at the behest of Tom Slick had hired some people to hunt Bigfoot for him in this area. Okay. And he had come to town to find out where all his money's been going to these people that were claiming they were hunting Bigfoot. There was 2 of them that were in prison. There was 2 of them one of them was living in San Francisco at the time. There was a whole bunch of other people that were just not doing anything. So they all got fired, including John Green. John Green was so pissed that he wouldn't answer the phone. And his wife answered, "Who's this?" You know, and he fired him. And it's like, okay, you're not needed. And so, but Bob Titmus, he couldn't fire because Bob said, "Oh, I'm doing something for Tom Slick. It's top secret. I can't even tell you about it. You guys are doing that little stuff. No, I'm doing something really intense." And so years later, or a little time later, Bob Titmus was coming to town, and Tom Slick was coming to town. So they all went to a campsite with Peter Burns and his brother and Jerry and some other people, having breakfast, waiting for Tom Slick to get there. He did. And then this little old car drives up and stops. And then Bob Titmus gets out and he comes over and he looks, didn't say hi to anybody. He went right up to Tom Slick, "Right this way. Come with me." And they didn't say hi or nothing. And they took him in this car and they drove off. They all sat there going, "What's going on?" And what happened was 2 hours later, they come back and he just gets out of the car and the car just goes zoom and takes off. And Tom Slick went over and poured himself a brandy like right away. Like he had 2 shots before he could even talk. And they're like, "Dude, what happened?" And he goes, "We had to crawl through 200 feet of elderberries on our knees with no wind, sweating like pigs, and to find this special place. And we finally broke out into this circle, and it was this opening. And he said, 'This is Bigfoot's toilet.'" And he's like, "What?" You know, and they were like, "Whoa, what's going on?" And they, "Well, let's get some pictures," because and they start hearing something, and they got really scared. They heard something big coming. And Tom was like, "Whoa, let's get a camera." And Bob Tibbs was very upset. And all of a sudden, something broke out of the bushes. There was a little tree right in the middle. There was a little tree right in the middle of the clearing. And something broke out of the bushes and approached the tree. And they're like, they're freaking out, you know. And then they realized, oh, it's an Indian on horseback. So it came up and he stopped at the tree, got off the thing and tied his horse to the tree. And but before that, I'm sorry, they saw at the base of the tree there was fresh shit, fresh fecal matter, huge piles. And they're like, "That's Bigfoot. I told you, this is it." And they go, "Wow, we got to get some pictures." Well, the guy comes out on a horse, ties it up, and he gets off the thing. And Tom just came out and said, "Sir, can I talk to you?" He goes, "Yeah." And he says, "What are you doing here?" He goes, "I get my herbs from here. I've been getting from the last 40 years. This is where I get my herbs from." "Oh, and okay." And then all of a sudden this horse took a big shit on top of the pile. Okay. So that was the end of that. And and Bob, he was all upset and they just left and it was a total fake. And he just drove off and I guess he went to Washington and kind of disappeared. But that was just there's so many characters in this whole thing, man. There's so many characters. Yeah. There's a little more detail, but yeah, anyway.
Yeah. That's interesting. The more you get into these stories from back then in that era, the more you discover 2 things. You discover Bigfoot stories, okay, and prints being found here and there, but the characters are like fantastic. These larger than life characters.
Oh,
all
yeah.
of them.
Oh, it's so great. So great.
Yeah. And all of them have their strange backstory.
Yeah.
Right.
Tom Slick is an incredibly eccentric millionaire guy from Texas. He was an oil millionaire and he used to hang out with Howard Hughes. I mean, he was suave, man. He knew everybody. And but he was involved in a lot of very eccentric stuff.
No, he didn't look like.
Could you imagine
cartoon.
If Howard Hughes?
Yeah.
Could you imagine if Howard Hughes got into Bigfoot because of Tom Slick?
Yeah. Oh boy. Man. What do you think he was doing in that?
It'd be kind of funny.
Well, I'll tell you another hilarious story about Tom Slick and Peter Burns and Ray Wallace. And that was that Ray Wallace wanted to meet Tom Slick. So Peter Burns arranged it, and they were at the Willow Inn. And they were sitting there, and in walks Ray, and they introduced each other. And he said, I have a baby Bigfoot. And Tom Slick goes, mm-hmm. And he goes, well, how much do you want for it? And he started getting all sweaty. I want $25,000. And Tom just looks at him. Okay, pulled out a checkbook, wrote the check, put it on the table. And when he reached for it, he said, bam, not until you bring it. And so we go, oh, okay. I'll bring it tomorrow. I'll bring it tomorrow. Okay, fine. You can have the check when you bring it tomorrow. So the next day, and they walked out, and it's like, this guy's not going to do it. The next day, he came back, and he's like, all sheepish. Oh, well, it got sick in the night, and I had to let it go, and all this stuff. But I'll have another one. And it's like, oh, man, so great. I mean, there's a lot more detail to the story, but, I mean, you can't write this stuff.
Yeah.
No.
The more you find out about Ray Wallace,
no, it's great.
Crazier things get.
Well,
exactly.
The thing is that they didn't claim that Ray was Bigfoot until he died, because he never would have stood before cameras and all the press. He couldn't have answered all those questions. They did it after he died, so because he was like, I mean, God bless him, he was a total loon, and he would not have held up, and they knew that. So even one of the kids, Ray Wallace's kids, I think his name was Mike, there was $100,000 reward put up by John Green if you could fake these prints with the gate, the amount of space between each print that was not human. And he hooked up his shoes to fake prints, and he was on the back of this car, and he was being filmed by the local press. And he tried to do it, and he almost died because it pulled him, and he was a wreck. He fell, and it was horrible. Yeah.
From what I read, those strap-on wooden prints made it all but 2 or 3 steps before they broke. Then they had to go sit down and try to fix them again. So right after 2 or 3 steps, I could already tell that this is obviously not how they were made, because they only lasted 3 steps, and they were surprised that it only lasted 3 steps.
Exactly.
So the difference was also that when the Bigfoot print, when a real print was pressed in, the amount of pressure that went down had to be so intense, and there was a quality to the skin that left that you could tell, instead of this smooth carved thing that he had and stuff. And there's a lot of science behind the two different. I have a great picture of both of them, the fake one and the real one. And it's amazing stuff. So
well, it depends. The foot interacts with the ground too, and all that plays a factor. And stuff between fake and wooden, fake prints and real prints, you can tell.
Well, it was really hard too, because my father and my Uncle Jim, when they first started, they were in the water trucks, and they're watering the roads down because the dust was so thick. They had to water everything down. And for a fake print to go through the dust and through whatever, it was impossible to leave something that deep. And there was another thing where the terrain is really steep. It's insanely steep. And that's when they found like a 650 pound tire off a tractor rolled down the road and thrown off the ravine. They found all this stuff that was picked up and thrown. It couldn't be done, by a human. And it's just some with amazing strength. Yeah. So
oil barrels and stuff.
And you said guys quit going to the job because they started seeing these things.
They were really spooked. They were spooked, and that's what got Ray pissed at first. Well, all these people, I'm quitting. That's it. And because a lot of them had heard there's a scream. My uncle, he was staying in a trailer in the woods, and they had just carved out this one road. That's what they were doing. They were carving out roads. And he was on his Harley. He was so cool. My Uncle Jim, he's like the coolest uncle, man. He worked at the Steinhardt Aquarium swimming with dolphins and feeding gar. You know, he's so cool. I love Jim.
Dream job.
He was my dad's younger brother. And so he was going back to doing his laundry, and he was coming back up on his Harley with his bag of laundry, and it was getting dark, and he blew a gasket on his bike, and he had to walk the rest of the way. So he's walking, it's getting really dark, and he's walking up this road they had just carved out to this trailer, and he right beside him is the Willow Creek. You could see it through the trees. And he started being aware that something was following him, like mirroring him. And he's like, yeah, you know, so he kept checking. And then he went a little faster, and it went a little faster. And he got really pissed off, and he picked up a rock and he threw it, and it hit something. And then he saw the shape get down on its knees and howl. He said his blood froze. Have you ever heard a Bigfoot scream?
Yeah.
Only in recordings, but like,
well, of course. Yeah. No, not in your closet. Yeah, I get it. No,
not in the closet.
Yeah. But I'm saying that it's a horrifying scream, especially in the middle of the woods at night. And he heard that, and he never forgot. He never forgot it. And he ran all the way to this cabin and jumped in the cabin. He just was sitting in there just freaking out. You know, he was really
done the same thing.
He wasn't freaking out, but he was like very But years later, he heard some recordings of somebody who had a baby Bigfoot, and it was the same sound. So yeah, creepy, man. It's creepy.
Exactly. So I got another question for all you guys. We know lions and elephants can do infrasound. Do you think Bigfoots are able to do that as well? And if so, why do you think that?
I definitely think they can use infrasound, just because I've heard over 100 accounts of people being frozen their steps or being sent into a trance. And then a lot of people in the missing 401, they feel suddenly overcome with sickness, and they fall down and they are dizzy. And I think it's definitely possible. I think they have sonar just like dolphin and bats. You know, they're just like the purest form to this earth. Their pineal gland hasn't been interrupted, so they're just one with this world.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
That was very new age of you.
Very cool.
The pineal gland is yeah. I mean, I have problems with people. Like, I saw something on your site where people were taking EMF readings, and they got voices and stuff. And I'm here. Who is that? Do you know about that?
That was me. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. This is not a Bigfoot. It has nothing to do with Bigfoot. This is demons. I know a lot of people who do ghost hunts. And ghost hunts are, you know, if you want to call it a demon, you want to call it an interdimensional being. These are not dead people. You know, they're not dead people. They're interdimensional beings that know know a sucker when they see it. And so, you know, like when people go to a seance, well, I heard my Aunt Millie's voice, and I heard her little dog barking, and I could smell her perfume. These are entities that know everything about her, okay? And they know how to suck you in. That's why the supernatural is really you have to be it's very perilous, because it's full of lies. You know, so yeah, when I hear pineal gland, yeah, I start getting red, you know, warning flags. Now you're talking about this thing. To say that word again, what was it?
Infrasound.
Infrasound. I don't even know what that is. What is that?
It's a way to control
people
through.
Go ahead, Jake. Tell them.
No, you go ahead. You'll probably explain it better.
So infrasound is going to be a sound at a different frequency than what our ears are able to hear. So our ears are able to hear an array of frequencies,
right.
But when something is now this is known, it is a natural thing. It's not a supernatural. It wouldn't fall into the realm of supernatural. When you have like, for example, one of the bigger ones is tigers. Tigers use infrasound a lot, and they didn't start knowing this till a few years later. But they, for example, people claim
aorta.
Perhaps, I don't know, but what they can do is they can emit some sort of sound at a certain frequency and level where you feel, and you can, you know, your hair standing up on the back of your neck and all that, and you as a subsequent natural species, you know, alongside it, you can feel it, and it emits that energy to you. It's not an energy; it's a type of sound. It's just at a certain frequency that is not receptive to audio like we our ears are able to capture it. So, but it's known in the natural world. Other animals do it, and I think that perhaps
elephants use it to communicate over elephants can use infrasound to communicate over several miles from each other.
Wow.
Yeah, they can stomp on the ground and communicate.
It's like
so emit a sound from inside of themselves that they communicate very far away like that. So.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a gentleman that's done a lot of work. There's a guy a gentleman that's done a lot of work on infrasound and Bigfoot. He's actually I guess he's the audio expert of the Bigfoot world. There's David Ellis, and he's with the Olympic Project, but he's been dissecting sounds from people all over the place. And he started running a certain program. I'm not sure what he does. He gives a good description of it. I don't, but he can capture a wider array. Say that 5 times fast. Wider array of frequencies. Wider array of frequencies than we can hear, and he's picked up all kinds of crazy stuff. I'll give you a weird example of this is just all theory as far as this book, because nothing is proven. But that sound that I captured in Laos camp, which sounds like a person yelling, doing a little double yell, right? It wasn't audible to me, and it should have been. Right. It should have been. And when we recreated it, the people that are right in front of camp, if they would have yelled, I would have heard it. If they would have yelled and my camera recorded it, it would have showed up as a certain sound wave. This sound that I recorded sounds distant, and it also doesn't show up in a sound wave. So I'm very open to that. Perhaps these sounds are coming at different frequencies, and every once in a while they'll hit a frequency that we can hear. So it's not a paranormal thing; it's a thing of the natural world. I get it. And that's what I think that they're possibly able to do.
The whole Tesla technology was based on frequencies.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's a lot we don't know. But I just give you a warning when you start talking about things you don't know and then start moving towards the new age thing. It's you got to be careful. You got to be careful because it'll suck you in. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, you're right.
What do you think, Damon? On the
infrasound?
Yeah, on the infrasound. What do you think?
No, I definitely think they could probably do that. They seem to have the vocal range and the lung capacity to do. Man, if they could blast you with a very low frequency thing with lung capacity to have behind you, why not? I haven't experienced anything like that, but I know a lot of people have.
Mm-hmm.
And
do it and pick your pocket at the same time.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Elephants can communicate over multiple miles using these guttural growls that humans can't really hear.
Right. What about the knockings?
Like wood knocks and stuff? Yeah. I believe they do that for sure. And I believe it's a good way to kind of conceal yourself if you want to remain hidden. Because if you're a human and you're out there yelling out loud and you're trying to remain hidden from other people or something, you're going to give yourself away.
Doing a good job, yeah.
No. But with
I've experienced quite a few wood knocks, actually.
Wood knocks are cool. And like with wood knocks, Damon,
tell us about that.
Well, go ahead. The first time, a couple years ago with one of Cliff's expeditions, we were at Tom's Meadow and we got to the very end. We'd already had a whoop response earlier. To a couple of whoops from different locations. And so Derek Randalls, myself, and another guest were kind of sitting at the end of the road at Tom's Meadow. And Derek thought he heard something in the bushes ahead. So he started making like a distressed deer noise. And while he started doing that, off to my left, I heard a subtle knock. And then very shortly after that, another one on the right. Oh. And I've experienced that a couple more times, and I almost think it's kind of like almost like a subtle, like I'm in position, or even I've heard it used in a way that I think is more like I'm here, are you here? Mm-hmm. Like, are you another Squatch? Like it doesn't know yet. So a little subtle knock, looking for a response like that.
And that's another thing. And that's another thing. Robert Louderman kind of told me this, and that's one reason when I go into the field, I like to start with knocks first. Because he explained it in a way that makes a lot of sense. Like, if you're, like, say we go to Mexico and none of us are native to that language. This is hypothetically. and you're trying to speak Spanish, people are gonna know you don't know how to speak Spanish.
Mhm.
Now, if you go in the field and do calls and whoops,
Right.
a Bigfoot's gonna recognize that, just like
Absolutely.
a bird's gonna recognize you're not getting the bird call right. And so the nice thing
Unless
about
you have
Knox is, the nice thing about Knox is only things with hands can do Knox. So it's either a person or a Bigfoot.
Right. Unless you have you can get a Bigfoot accent down, then you're okay. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
The other thing I don't like about knocks, though, is people do a lot of the big power knock, and I've experienced that a couple of times too. But that has been, to me, in the context of like a warning. The first time was we were just going to go explore another area. We pull up, we get out of the cars, and there's a big swamp in front of us. And then suddenly here's this huge power knock on the other side of the swamp. And it was very clearly a warning that the humans are here or something. And it was like quiet all night. I mean, it was dead.
The only thing, I guess, bad about knocks is, a knock is cool if you hear one and record one, but it's not as definitive as a vocalization.
No, of course not.
By any means. And that's the bad thing. It's like the best audio, I think, is vocalizations. The better evidence is, videos or photos. The better evidence beyond that is tracks or hair samples and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of climbing the ladder.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, who was it? I was trying to think of the name of the guy. I guess it was Titmus, who was saying to, no, it was Ray Wallace. No, it was Titmus. He said that he had Bigfoot hair. And when Peter Burns went to visit him, or somebody went to visit him where he was doing this taxidermy with mooses. And it turned out that the hair, it was Bob Titmus. He kept sending stuff to Texas to Tom Slick. They were out there looking at something and they found these little baby bear tracks. This is a baby Bigfoot. And Jerry Crew's like, no, they're looking at Peter Burns. They're like, no, it's not. This is a baby Bigfoot. He took pictures and sent it to Tom Slick in Texas. And he sent him some hairs. This is Bigfoot hairs. Then they went and saw him and he was doing taxidermy on a moose with all his hair everywhere. It was like, and the hairs turned out to be moose hairs. There's so many jokesters. It's just like the supernatural ghost people. Do you see that? Did you see that? Did you see that? And you never see anything. Yeah. So, I mean, I really know that there is a Bigfoot out there. I know they're out there. Have you heard about that guy in Canada, Tom Standing? Who?
Tom Standing?
Wait.
Yeah.
Todd.
Now you know that
Todd Standing.
That's right, Todd Standing. Yeah. I was on another Bigfoot podcast. I forget what it was called, Squatch something, and they're talking about Todd. They're all laughing at this guy. It's totally fake. Now my niece's husband runs Freedom First Network. He does a lot of interviews. Well, he interviewed Todd Standing, and he sounded like, they thought he was pretty credible, but apparently they all think he's totally fake. But I saw pictures of what he took, and it was pretty a trip. I mean, he had close-up facial stuff, but he said I can take anyone out and show them a Bigfoot. No one cares. They don't want to know. Yeah. So I don't know if I buy it or not.
I have my opinions on him. I think I've talked about him before.
Yeah,
but it's a long chain, and it starts many years ago, and it slowly developed into. It went from a poster, him putting a poster out with a movie for a casting call for a movie, right? Sylvanic, correct?
Yep.
And once he got those, but it just goes down the line, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where he realized he can probably make some money off this. He ended up on some sort of search and rescue show where he said Bigfoot's chased him down, and it was some Canadian rescue show, non-Bigfoot related, but his story was that Bigfoot's surrounded him. Now, here's the big deal with him. Here's the biggest deal with him. And once I learned about Ray Wallace, I actually directly compared him to Todd Standing. I said, this guy was the OG Todd Standing. Okay, because he's out there making all these claims. All these newspaper outlets were coming up to Ray Wallace, talking to him. And he's kind of the reason that he has some hand in the reason that Bigfoot started becoming this sort of a joke thing, because there was a certain point when your grandpa started, when he cast those prints and they all came out, it wasn't very much laughed at. People were coming in asking about them. You had PhDs and scientists actually intrigued about them. And slowly you had these Ray Wallaces come out here and say, oh, well, I got them on camera and they've been in caves with them. And I told this guy where to go and I did this. And he's these huge obsession, and he ends up in the paper a few times. Now people are reading that and they're going, "Hey, honey, did you look at this about the Bigfoot? Isn't that ridiculous?" And
people just
he loved it.
People just say dollar
he
signs.
Craved it.
Exactly. And today's version of that is Todd Standing. He's been all over the place. Last week we had a gentleman that debunked the lady that took the pictures of the Bigfoot in Big Bear or near Big Bear. He's the one that went up there, did the investigation, debunked it, and then she teamed up with Todd Standing and went running to the press, and they started suing Fish and Game for not taking care of the Sasquatch community. It's ridiculous. But
it's all about money now. People just want fame and money.
I mean, this is not my grandfather; it's my great uncle Jerry.
Great uncle. Sorry about Sunday. That.
All right, yeah, you'd be shocked. I'm shocked and appalled. No, he was a Sunday school teacher. He taught Sunday school to the Hopi Indians, and that's why he didn't live on site at the campground. He would drive there every week and drive back. It was like a 3-hour drive to get there from where he was. And I mean, he didn't drink or anything. I mean, he was totally. Everyone who's ever worked with Jerry said his integrity was so strong that they never doubted a word he said. Yeah. So,
he seemed like the most humble kind of,
absolutely,
straight shooter kind of guy too.
I remember him as a kid. I remember him, and he'd come in and do these little magic tricks. It was so cool because he used to do that for the Indian kids. When he'd tell Bible stories and stuff, he'd do magic tricks and stuff. But awesome. He was really cool, man. He was really cool. Well, see, when it first went out over nationwide, all over the world, when that thing about him holding the print, I sent you one of those pictures. Or I sent somebody there one of those pictures, but it so meant 10,000 people responded. This is in 1958. I mean, the guy at the Humboldt Times was just freaking out because there's so many people from all over the world that were calling on him and trying to get an interview and all this stuff. And Jerry's a very humble man. He was like, "Wow, I don't know what I do. I don't even know." It's like, what is this? So he actually got a job. He got in 3 accidents. It's a very dangerous job when you log. Very dangerous. Yeah. The first one was what happened? He broke his back. So that was the first one. No. The first one was he's in a zoo, like one of those crawlers, and they have these things that are on the trees, and they released them, and it slapped him in the mouth and knocked all his teeth out. That was the first one.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh well, and then, but the second one was he broke his back. He broke his back, and he was out for 5 months, and he finally came back, and he was logging again, and then eventually he stepped on a giant rusty nail, and that was it. This is back then, So they did all his tetanus shot and everything. And he said, "You know what? It's too dangerous." His wife was pissed. His wife was like, "What? Come on, So he studied to be an engineer, and he became an engineer for Boeing. And he moved out of there, and but he died in age 83. I think 83. And my father and Jim were up there. They spent a whole week with him before he died, and then it was a number of years later that Ray Wallace died, and then the whole thing came out worldwide. Bigfoot's dead,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's like kind of what you were saying, Jonathan, too. Jerry Crew came out with the tracks, and then Ray Wallace fake tracks he just saw money. And with the Patterson Gimlin film, Bob Hieronymus and Philip Morris saw an opportunity, we could capitalize on it and try and make money. And they tried and did that, and they went on TV shows. It's there's always this back and forth now. And like you said, the Philip Morris, Ray Wallace Bob Hieronymus of our generation is Todd Standing, and
Correct.
definitely more people. Some people say
always be
MK
that
Davis. Yeah, some people say MK Davis too. But MK Davis has done some cool stuff. He's done a lot of
unlike
on
Todd
the film.
Standing, I will say he's made some major contributions, as far as his analysis of the film and his work on the film, right? But then again, he did a lot of damage with some totally off the wall claims, with the whole, I don't even want to talk about it because it seems like I feel like the people that talk about the whole massacre theory are the people that really, really follow it. I don't think that story has gone out to the general public and people are like debating it or anything like that. I think it's just us hardcore people that got wrapped up in that, But
that's such a dumb theory, though.
He's kind of the backstory behind that. I left him a big fat comment when he was trying to shed some truth or some light on some film, and I was like, since when are you the person that shed truth and light on anything, because he came out with this bizarre thing, he wasn't too happy about it. But the truth is that
they're saying you can see like blood and stuff in the Patterson Gimlin film and the dead body. I'm like, where in that film can you see anything except for the one that's walking?
And he, who is excellent at working with film, should know that. So he's either extremely confused at the moment, right? And the colors are off. The water looks red at some point, and that's what he based the whole thing off of.
It's like it's a pool of blood.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was very irresponsible.
Redwoods.
That tree back there is that tree back there is King Kong. If you guys didn't see,
there you go.
My only thought about that is that if they actually had a body, wouldn't they have this? If you had a body versus a film, wouldn't you strap the sucker to your horse and take it into town? And
that's the other thing. If there was a body there, they would have taken it.
I'm pretty sure the guy, the broke cowboy that was sick, and would have strapped it to the back of his horse and ridden out of there. There's no way that they. It's just, it doesn't make any sense at all. But there's with all these Bigfoot claims throughout the different decades, there's been just as many hoaxers that seem to latch on and try to make themselves some sort of name, either for money or fame, or YouTube views or whatever it is. They'll always be out there.
Speaking of Gimlin, I've seen a number of interviews with him, and one of them exactly fits into my whole theory, or the theory we arrived at about Bigfoot being human. And that was when he was there, and he had a gun on him. Gimlin had a gun on him, okay? And he could have shot it. But they asked him, why didn't you shoot it? Because it was too human.
Yeah.
And he said, I would have shot it if it was my life. I would have shot it. But because it would look too human, no way I wasn't going to shoot it at all. That's exactly what I'm talking about. These things are human. They're that have adapted. They're not supernatural. There's a whole site on Facebook, UFOs and Bigfoot. It's like hilarious, this is not it. That's not it. It's more disinfo. Yeah.
Doesn't Kelly Shaw, speaking of fake people, doesn't he kind of believe there's something supernatural to him? He's on like Survivor Man, because Survivor Man had like Todd Standing and then Kelly Shaw, and I think there was somebody else. Yeah, Les Stroud. He did the whole season, but Kelly Shaw was on there. He kind of seems fake to me too. And that's
Kelly's another guy that I think provides a lot of really neat stuff, really good stuff. Has he seen real Bigfoot footprints? Probably, yeah. He's shown a lot of pretty neat things. What I like about him is he goes to sighting locations, talks to the witness, and then he films around and he tells you their version of the story. And it's really neat. But there's another side to him where he's going out there and he's going, this is a Bigfoot footprint and I found it and it absolutely is. And and you start to look at it and you're going, maybe that doesn't look so, and he's like, it was something out for scrutiny, we're not going to do that. But it's not up for discussion. And, there's a lot of things with him. I used to watch him a lot more now. Lately, he's been pretty good. I mean, I've been keeping up with his recent stuff, and he's just been doing sighting reports. But back then he was a little bit controversial. I think he was one of the more polarizing people there for a while.
Yeah, I was watching his Paul Freeman investigation stuff. I was like, that's cool. I haven't finished it all yet, but that's super cool.
The Rocky Mountain Sasquatch Organization.
Yeah, it's exactly how he talks.
He seems like a cool guy. Like if you hung out with him in camp and all. I don't know how real some of his stuff is, but
it sounds like he's gonna cry and he can't finish his sentences at the same time. So that's kind of how he talks. But no, like you said, he'd probably sound like a cool guy to hang out with and have a beer with something.
Yeah. Probably most of them were, I mean, Ray Wallace would have been a scream.
I'd probably hang out with Ray Wallace for a while, just for kicks.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a question, guys. If you could like hang out with and have a beer with anybody from the old Squatching days, who would it be, and why?
We lose a feed here, or
I would hang out with Saint Christopher, from the Bible. He's the giant that carried Jesus across the freezing river. Like, that's so crazy. On Sundays, everybody's looking up to Jesus, and they don't even think about this guy was walking with giants and sailing with Leviathan and Behemoth. It's fascinating.
What book in the Bible is that from, child?
Well, it's actually not in the Bible, but it's
there you go,
Christopher, in the Catholic religion. So it's not actually in the Bible, but
no, it's not. It's not
based on the book.
That's a hilarious thing. Jesus was never carried by giants, child. You better ask somebody. Yeah. No, there's nothing. You have to be very careful. I mean, the Catholic religion, people are going to hate me for saying this, but Catholicism is paganism with Christian frosting on it. And I'm not talking about all Catholics. I'm talking about Roman Catholics. Roman Catholics, they worship. It's like paganism. You worship the goddess Mary. You pray to demagogues, saints. It's Christian frosting on paganism. There was in Rome. There was a group of witches that infiltrated the Roman Catholic Church. It was the cult of Dionysus, I think, or something, Diana, and what they did was they took all their rituals and blended in with the Catholic Church. From the incense to the ritual robes to all this crazy stuff. So it's You gotta be careful about that. Talking about Jesus and stuff, child. Amen.
Yeah, it was the way that they conquered the places. They just took the pagan stuff and blended into their own, and kind of
true.
To bring the names along. On the
Israel got in a lot of trouble for doing that. Yeah. Yeah. Wandered 40 years in the desert because of it, but fascinating stuff. Yeah. I mean, I know. Have you ever heard of Ken Gerhard?
No.
Yeah.
He's a Bigfoot guy. He was on Missing in Alaska. He's on a Bigfoot podcast,
I think I've seen that
now.
He's mixing movies.
He's one of the guys with the hat.
One of the hat guys.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's a zoologist from Texas, but I run an institute, California Institute of Abnormal Arts, for 26 years. And we have a museum here. We have 3 dead bodies from 100 years ago. I used to be a mortician, so I know the rules. Pre-1925, I don't need a permit. And we're in the Ripley's book and everything. But him and Jax from the show came down and we did a tour. And I have a head of Bigfoot, which is a gaff. But then I started talking about Jerry Crew, and it blew their minds. Because Jerry Crew, yeah, it was so cool. So I made friends with Ken Gerhard, yeah. So he's really good. He's actually on a podcast right now on another Bigfoot pod. I said, to listen to this one. He made chicken, but that guy really amazing. He now talk about the Mothman, the Dogman, all that stuff. He has books and books on it. Yeah, Ken Gerhard. You should check him out.
Ken Gerhard.
He was on. Tate, I don't know if you watched it. We were talking about it. Momo the Monster. He did a documentary about it. Seth Breedlove did that one. And is that Lyle Blackburn? They were the same. These are just too hard. I can't keep up with all the hats in Bigfoot because they have the same hat, and it blocks right here. And I made a funny comment on the Coalition Facebook page for Bigfoot with Steven's page where I showed 352. but there's a hat blocking it. I said, this is why we never see Bigfoot.
Oh, that's funny.
Wear that hat, it blocks right in the middle. Like, really?
Yeah.
I don't know how conventional that is to go looking.
I think Lyle was on Cliff and Bobo's podcast. They're talking about how they're always being like, wherever they go, the fans are always thinking it's the other guy, and then commenting on the movies and stuff. So they just finally
I would.
That's hilarious, though.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if there's anybody I would choose to hang out with, it would probably be Renee Hinden. He seems like a fun, crazy dude to hang out with. Well, there was a guy in
beer
our
commercials.
Yeah, there was a guy in our Bluff Creek group who actually hung out with Renee Hinden when Renee Hinden was around, and Renee Hinden took him to the film site and everything, and he has like photos and stories of all that, and so that like I have yet to talk to him about that and hear all these cool Renee Hinden stories. So that's who I hang out with.
You still could hang out with Peter Burns. He's 96. This guy, they call him the Indiana Jones Don Quixote. This guy hunted. he has an amazing. This guy, man, I was so honored. I interviewed him 3 times, and he is so cool. And he doesn't take any mess. You have to be very respectful about talking to him. But he grew up in the Ceylon tea fields in India. He was from Ireland, and that's where he grew up. But he hunted elephants all over India. He has these $100 books of him hunting all this crazy giant. It's insane. I mean, when I really delved into his history, just interviewing him was just absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. He was the one who him and Tom Slick. Yeah, he was telling me, he had hunted the Yeti for Tom Slick in the Himalayas. Yeah, his whole book's on that too. Yeah, so fascinating. I would love to have something with him. I don't drink, so I have a liquor license. I don't drink, so I'll have a virgin pina colada. Yeah,
a LaCroix or something. Soda water.
LaCroix. LaCroix owe me $10.
Hey, Carl, were you into all this stuff?
LaCroix.
Carl, were you into all this stuff before you were in Blood Diner?
All my life.
Yeah.
All my life. I used to have an antique store in the Haight-Ashbury. Yeah, I grew up in San Francisco, man. I was a mortician for 5 years, but I grew up in a repertory theater group for 17 years since I was a kid till I was like 20. So I'm all whacked out, yeah. But I mean, I've always been. I grew up in the Addams family's attic, so to speak. Not Anton LaVey's basements, yeah. But but running this club for 26 years, man, I run into a lot of people, and we just had the bones of Elephant Man donated to the club. These are the ones they did a scan of the actual skeleton in London, and they reproduced it through that mapping thing, that digital
like
whatever
3D printing.
Exactly. And it was for the David Bowie Broadway play, the Elephant Man, and they just donated the whole thing with the original books and everything to it. So yeah, we have a museum. Great. We have all kinds of crazy stuff here. Yeah.
I was hoping you'd say you had stolen from Michael Jackson.
But, it's so funny because I'm working with.
Did he have the same copy, or what was that about?
No, he got a copy. Yeah, he got a copy. Yeah, he did. I think I don't know if it's the same one, but he got a copy. He wanted the real one, but the family didn't want him to have it. I'm working with Captain Leather, which was this guy who designs these leather costumes for all these stars, and he did a lot for Michael Jackson. He did for Thriller and everything, and he knows everybody. He's hilarious, man. Captain Leather, man. But he told me, it's that they wouldn't let him have it. They wouldn't let him have it, but he has one of the replicas too. But yeah, it's awesome. Crazy times in Hollywood. Yeah,
it's a weird thing to have.
What about you, Damon? Who would you hang out with and have a drink with?
Man, that is good. That's a tough one. Maybe Grover Krantz.
Ooh, that is a good one.
Who?
Grover Krantz.
Grover Krantz.
Who's that?
The original 4 horsemen of the Bigfootery, I guess.
He's the original PhD to really look into the Bigfoot phenomenon, and he pulled a lot of information out of footprints. He kind of took Jeff Meldrum under his wing.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
He's the guy.
Awesome dude. He was a pioneer of his time because no one else was into that fringe subject. So.
No, I like that a lot.
Yeah, Grover Krantz seems pretty cool.
I like his name.
Yeah, it's such a cool name. Grover Krantz.
Granddaughter did a great podcast series for a while.
Wait, what? Damon?
His granddaughter, I guess, did that podcast last year.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Something Krantz or whatever. I'm not sure. I'm acting like I know what I'm talking about. I'm like
Krantz cast. Yeah. So you saw Blood Diner?
Yeah, I actually watched it yesterday. It was awesome. You were impressive in the wrestling ring, and that talking head was hilarious too.
Yeah, Uncle Anmar. That was my first lead role. I did Jeffrey Dahmer too. Jeffrey Dahmer: The Secret Life.
Yeah, I gotta watch that.
Yeah, you eat a lot of food before you watch that. Yeah. I'm the only one. I'm the only one that can say. I'm the only one that can say that Dahmer saw my film in prison before he was murdered.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I have a page on Facebook called Jeffrey Dahmer: The Secret Life, and it's the film. I wrote it from police interviews with Jeffrey, and we were really low budget, man. We were low budget. I mean, we got better reviews than Jeremy Renner. Ha ha. But yeah. Well, what I did was I worked with a lot of let's call them. I want to call them scumbag filmmakers. I'll call them exploitational directors. And they
there you go. That's a good term.
Yeah, they taught me about hooks. So what we did when we announced we were going to shoot the Dahmer film, we said in the trades, we're shooting this film in secret. And like my fax machine exploded. Literally, smoke was curling up from it because there's so many texts coming in. And, but anyway, I have a Facebook page, and I have on there the hour I was on Maury Povich back in the day, but when it was before You're the Father. It was like in New York, and I was on there with all the family members. They actually flew me to Milwaukee, and I was interviewed in front of his apartment door. Yeah, and I reached out and I touched the door, and I really felt a presence still there. Wow. And the next day, the paper said, "Oh, Carl Crews, star of Jeffrey Dahmer, he makes love to Jeffrey Dahmer's door." And the director was furious. And I'm like, come on, you can't get publicity like that. Come on. But when we did the Maury Povich show, it was like the barbecue Carl Crews show. Yeah, because they were all on me. They were all just like tearing me apart. I was like, oh.
I was watching a little bit of that the other day. And I'm like, dude, they're ripping into you.
Yeah. Oh, you saw it? You saw it?
I saw a little bit of it. Yeah, I was like, geez.
Yeah. Oh, but I was defending my film. We had Janetta. She's a representation of the families. And she said, "You Jeffrey Dahmer number 2." I'm like, really? I'm an actor. Hello,
Wow.
You made a good point. You made a good point. Like, you're saying you're just playing a role basically, and what's wrong with that? People portray people that were, real people at one point.
This is one of the most heinous serial killers in the 20th century. So of course there's going to be a movie.
Yeah, the story had to be told.
When
they flew us out to Milwaukee, from Milwaukee's Talking. We did a show with them first, and they understood. They were cool. They hadn't seen it, and I wasn't trying to cause any problems or anything. And that's. But then when we got to New York, they whipped him up into a frenzy in the back room because they wanted some ratings. Yeah. So yeah. But I archived that whole thing on the Facebook page. Because they every time I put it up, they took it down, so I archived it so they can't touch it.
Hey, if you portrayed a serial killer in a film and people watched it and then they hated you did a great job. That's all that means.
Amen.
That's all that means.
Amen. Well, the irony is.
Go ahead.
Well, the irony is in Blood Diner, I played it was a comedy about cannibalism, and then I go on to play Jeffrey Dahmer, 2 cannibals in one.
That's so funny.
I'm
That's
actually
your genre. I eat people on movies.
I just wrote Jeffrey Dahmer number 2, which is the prison years. Yeah, and Jeffrey Dahmer became a Christian in prison.
Did he really?
Yeah, baby. Yes, he did.
Oh my God!
He took a Bible course. And he was horrified at what he had done, and he said, "I want to accept Jesus." And the pastor came in, and he accepted Jesus. So then he wanted to be baptized because he knew he was going to be killed. He knew it. Serial killers are high targets in prison, and he was in the general population. So he wanted to be baptized. He said, nope, you can't be baptized. And so he had another pastor come in and sneak in and do a baptism on him in private. And then he was murdered 2 weeks later.
Jeez.
So, child, if Jeffrey Dahmer's in heaven, yeah,
I was thinking of another movie about a serial killer. And actually, I'm not a huge Zac Efron fan.
Yeah.
But when he played Ted Bundy, my God, that's such a good movie. And I guarantee you there was backlash from that.
Well, I didn't hear him any, but Zac Efron came and did a photo shoot at my club in the early days. Yeah, back when before he was famous. Yeah, he was really nice, really nice. We had all kinds of people like that. He seemed like it, yeah. So I don't know who he's running with these days, but we just had PETA come in. PETA from the Hunger Games.
Oh,
that's Josh.
Josh Hutcherson.
Josh, yeah. He was really cool, man. I gave him the tour.
Mm.
I give tours here throughout. It takes like a half an hour, 45 minutes to get through all the crazy stuff. Madame Wong. I have a midget magician jewel thief from 1913, and Fa Choi was a magician for underground opium dens in 1914, and my dead clown, Achille Chatouillet. Can you say that?
Achille Chatouillet.
That was good. Now do it in harmony. Oh man, you guys are terrible.
2, 3. Achille
Chatouillet. That translates to the French tickler.
French tickler.
This is 1912. He is hermetically sealed in his casket from 1912. His last request was that he would always be on display. So his family sealed him in there in clown makeup, and he's wearing his Shriners Parade outfit from 1906 in Detroit.
Wow.
That's so weird.
Because he's hermetically sealed, he looks good. The other two look terrible. I mean, you could see nose hairs, ear hairs, man. He has a centerfold in the Ripley's hardback book in 2018. Yeah, my mom said.
God.
Yeah, so
that's so weird.
Yeah, well,
make sure to have a flashback scene in your new Dahmer movie that he goes back to.
Right.
Because he grew up one county away from me. So
wow,
I'm Dahmer proud. Yeah, I'm from Northeast Ohio too, and yeah, he
very cool.
Cutting up animals like 20 minutes away from where I grew up.
Jeez.
Bath, Ohio,
yeah, Bath, Ohio. I'm from Medina County, so right by it. Now LeBron James has a house right by Dahmer, so maybe there's some kind of crazy connection,
Trip. When I went to see his apartment, I guess Anthony Hopkins had toured there before they tore it down too. Before he did Hannibal. Or before he did Silence of the Lamb.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Anthony's cool, man. He used to drive all over the country and just go to little garage sales and all kinds of stuff. And that was a scary movie. Anyway, back to Bigfoot.
Bigfoot's always a fun subject, and it always leads to movies or what have you and stuff like that.
True.
But it's I'm going to ask you guys a question. What do you think is the best Bigfoot footage out there? And we'll kind of end the show with this because we're kind of at about an hour now. What do you guys think the best footage of Bigfoot is that's out there?
I think that the easiest one to say is the most obvious. You got it on your shirt there. It's this is an all audio show, but I'll say it is a Patterson Gimlin film. It's the I think everybody thinks that unless they think it's fake, but it's as clear as it gets for that time, for that era, and they got it on for it's like several seconds, and so I'll pick another one. I'll go with another one. I'll go with Bart Catino's, and while it's not clear, it's not the best looking. The measurements and recreation that they did afterward is what proves to me that he did film 3 or 4 subjects in the tree line next to camp. And Robert Lederman, member of the Bluff Creek Project, is the one that conducted the investigation on there. Bart Catino is also a member of the Bluff Creek Project. And I've been to that site and I've taken a good look. I've been ran back and forth just to get a gauge of how far away these things were from him. There were way closer than it looks on camera, just like the Patterson Gimlin film.
They look much further away.
He is closer than Patterson was to Patty in frame 352.
And Patterson was pretty close.
Yeah, I think Bart was closer, and there was 4. And there's that one part where it does take a step across, and you're like, okay, these aren't bears; they're obviously humanoid. And to me, I was like, that's the most intriguing, and the fact that it's in recent years, and that area is still active. 2015. I don't even know how many miles it would be from where the crow flies from where that spot is. Maybe 5 miles at the most, 5-6 miles at the most where the crow flies is where I heard several sounds and had a sighting through thermal imager. So, and Tom Yamarone, it was Tom Yamarone, he has some really cool audio recordings from Gold Lake, which is kind of a spot between Haskell Peak and where I was. So there's been footprints pulled from that area. That's a very cool area to go to. So that's the footage I wanted to talk about.
Cool.
What do you think,
never seen
Damon?
that footage.
There's been a lot of I think there's been a lot of really good newer video, but it's not as like detailed or clear as the PG film. You know, you can look at them once you've seen them, once you walk, you can kind of tell which ones are probably more realistic or not faked, but they're just not clear, you know. So it continues to hold the standard as far as being obviously modernized and 4K and everything else, stabilized and stuff like that. But once that's been done, nothing else has been clear like that.
Right. And you've seen the footage of stabilization of the Gimlin, right?
Yeah, the new stuff.
It's so clear.
Yeah, that's the iconic one. That's the one that they've never been fully debunked. I mean, they tried. Yeah, they tried, but they couldn't. That's like.
In fact, it does the opposite. The more advanced we get in technology, the more detail we see in it. Exactly.
It proves
it can't be recreated.
You didn't hear people in the 80s talking about, well, you know, you can see the muscle definition, and they didn't have 4-way stretch spandex back then for costumes, and all that stuff is new because we're able to see it now, and it's only going to get better because there's a gentleman that is still working on releasing. I think it's John Green's copy. Carl, I don't know if you know anything about that. Todd something Prescott is supposed to release.
Oh, Todd, is it Todd Prescott? Is it Tom or Todd?
T Prescott. Well, Sasquatch Archives channel, and he just released. He released not so long ago a clear version of when John Green and Renee DeHinden were flown in, and they're walking around looking at all the prints, and the clarity on it is much better than what we've seen in the past of that film. I mean, you can see their shoelaces, you can see all kinds of stuff. So if the version of the PG film is anything like that, we're gonna make more. We're gonna have more data, more information off of this film. So that's exciting. That we might get better.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool.
What do you think, Carl's your favorite or the best piece of film evidence?
He already said it.
The Patterson Gimlin film. Gotta go with that.
It's insane. I mean, especially when you look at the stabilized version, it's like, you can't. I won't even tell you. We took that film and did something to it at the end of the movie I wrote, so I can't even tell you. But no one's ever going to see what we're going to do with that. So
what do you think, Connor?
I of course love the Patterson Gimlin footage, but my favorite recent footage would be the Independence Day footage, where you see a mother Bigfoot cradle a little child, and they're going in between some boulders, and the creature in it clearly looks like Patty. And there's one really cool video that's like 12 minutes long, and supposedly most of it's lost, but there's screenshots of it. There's like 9 different screenshots that Squatch Me Now recently posted. And it's a Bigfoot coming right up to the window, and you can see it blink its nose. It's clear as day, and it matches.
Can you text me that?
He looks. Yeah, I can message you that right after this.
Yeah, I would love to see that. Yeah, I just posted a picture of a Bigfoot print on a window, where they breathed on a window, and the whole face is. Did you see that?
There's been a couple of those claims. Cliff posted one
Yeah.
recently too.
It was
Yeah.
a Cliff Brackman picture of.
Yeah, he was just at that Texas Bigfoot conference, and the people brought in the actual pane of glass.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's what it was.
He and Shelley Covington, Montana, did some DNA stuff with it, and they're gonna do some more testing. It should be pretty interesting.
I think I met that chick. I think I met that girl, Shelley.
Shelley's amazing.
Ago.
I mean, like,
She's been around for a few years. She's always, she seems pretty cool.
Yeah, she's self-taught tracker, one of the only certified ones in the whole U.S., like the National African Traffic Tracking Association. That's pretty hard to get into, and it's unbelievable for ourselves to do.
The Stacy Brown footage is really good too. Him and his dad.
I'd love to see that.
Recorded some thermal images of a Sasquatch in Torreya State Park, about like 20 minutes from here, and right across the river from a place called the Garden of Eden Trail, where in the 60s a guy wrote a book and made a documentary about claiming it may be the real Garden of Eden, because like 27 of the 28 trees in the Bible are in that park, and Delta breaks into 4 streams just like it describes, and gopher wood is also what Noah used to build the ark, and it only grows in that park because it's also known as Torreya. So there's a lot of far out stuff, and of course Sasquatch and Dogman.
Was he trying to sell you a plot of land?
It is beautiful down there. It's unlike any other part of Florida. Like most of Florida is flat, and there are valleys, and tornadoes have hit there, hurricanes have hit there. Yeah. There's some ley lines that attract.
Yeah, thermal footage is excellent footage too. It's really pretty cool. And Finding Bigfoot did a recreation of it, and it was pretty obvious that
it wasn't human.
It was not. Yeah, and Bobo's a good dude.
I would say the Patterson Gimlin film is definitely the best real life footage, and then the Brown footage is the best thermal footage ever.
100%.
I'd love to see that. Never seen it.
I'll text you send it to him. But guys, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciated it. I was up till 2 a.m. yesterday, and then 3 a.m. today. And I have a COVID scare because my uncle might have COVID, and we're waiting for him to get tested, and so I'm kind of like nervous about everything and just not resting.
Don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. Yeah, it's recover. You can recover from it.
I know.
It's not gonna kill you, dude. Yeah.
It's irrational fear is what it is.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Anyway, it's a pleasure meeting you guys.
Yes, thank you.
Great to meet you. Awesome hearing those stories. Thank you very much, Carl.
Oh, my pleasure, man.
Cool.
So if you go to CI Abnormal Arts on Facebook, you can see the club that I manage and all the pictures and stuff. And you can contact me there directly too. But so I hope to be walking this screenplay into a big producer that I don't even talk about, but who knows? It's like blah 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 until it happens. You don't celebrate till the check is good. But this has been seriously, I've done that too many times. But it's been about 2.5 years of just family history. So we'll see what happens. But I'm love to see any kind of new footage that goes on though. Yeah, just keep me posted on that.
For sure.
And yeah.
Well, thank you guys for coming on, and have a good night, okay?
Yes, sir.
God bless you, brother.
Good meeting you.
Later on.
Amen. Take care, man. Okay, bye.